My friendly guy, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin Anwin for anyone who's new here, and let's get back into building in Planet Zoo. And I'm continuing in the Wetlands Safari Park Zoo today with a platypus habitat. This is also inspired by one of the platypus fun facts from the Zoopedia. It's kind of a reach, but we'll get there in the end, I think. The platypus fur bio-fluoresces blue-green under ultraviolet light, and it's hypothesized that this adaptation might reduce visibility of the platypus to predators. I was just thinking about the fact that they glow. And, you know, I like making wacky habitats. I played around with quite realistic builds so far, but I like making fun, strange, wacky habitats, however you want to say it. They don't normally belong in a zoo, but that's the type of habitat I like to make. So I thought glowing. Then I went to glow sticks, and glow sticks made me think of raves. Never been to one in my life. I'm not a rave person. I'm not a party person. I'm not a leave the house person. I'm a sit here and play games type of person. But that doesn't mean that my platypus can't go for a rave. And I really like making sort of abandoned, creepy looking buildings at the same time. I was thinking like an industrial warehouse type of rave in an abandoned warehouse. So I'm starting off with windows, and as usual I am not happy with the windows that are given in game, so I'm making my own. I tried a couple of different windows and a couple of different styles of windows before I settled on something that I actually liked. I wanted it to be quite an industrial window. I'm gonna make it all grimy later, but I settled on this one because I really liked the extra smaller details in it. I'm still trying to limit the amount of packs that I'm using with these builds as well. So this habitat, or this abandoned warehouse industrial building, is just going to be built using base game and Europe pack, because Europe pack has the neon lights and the damage decals decoration, so I can make everything look a little bit more abandoned and rather than a sparkly new industrial building. The main building's got the windows that are sticking out, and then the extra part of the building, like the extension sort of shape, is going to be recessed. It's gonna go inwards. I also decided that I didn't want it to be exactly the same shape as well, so the extra part of the building is going to have square windows, whereas the main part of the building are going to have those curved top arch type windows. Just have a little bit of variation. I wanted it to be like a box, but a bit more interesting, to have those little extra bits. Doesn't help for like the length of time it takes me to build these things. Like this one took roughly 9 hours. I decided to make this box a little bit more interesting, I guess, by taking the one side off so it wasn't mirrored, and I then moved the taller tower part of the building back slightly as well, so it was like off the main building's grid. And I didn't follow my rule with the building a roof last, but that was because I wanted to know what the building would look like on the outside first. I will then move the roof out of the way until right at the end, but I wanted to know what it looked like, and I wanted to see how the whole building would actually work with the roof, and I picked quite a shiny metal roof to make it feel a little bit more industrial as well. The main building, like the longer building, that was really easy to do. I had a definite image in my mind for what to do, but the tower was just, I played around with that so much I didn't have a clue how to build the roof for the tower, because the windows were set inside the building rather than outside. I couldn't do like the same style of roof that I did for the main building, so I had to play around with a few different options. Roofs have just been the bane of my existence in this zoo. The roof for the entrance building was so fiddly. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put it up in the iCard somewhere. Oh, Do we still have iCards up here, or do we have them in the description now? But for the tower, I decided just to do quite a square roof. I was thinking maybe this factory could be like an old fishing building, like where they would prepare the fish, sell the fish, like a fish factory. But now it's been abandoned and it's got like into disrepair. So I had this watermill from the East Asia style, and I thought maybe this could be like part of the old factory. And I built it like solidly around the building around the back. And this is kind of going to be submerged underwater now. Because my plan for this, even though I'm building this whole thing out of the water, once all of the details are done, and once I've completely built this factory, I'm going to move it and I'm going to submerge it in water. And it's going to be like a flooded rave. So the only sort of creatures that are going to be able to go to the rave are going to be the platypus. It's all going to be set out like the rave, but then like more like this rave has been abandoned too, and the whole factory has been flooded because of the rain. So I wanted to make like kind of algae, moss, griminess. Where the building had been in water for so long and the levels had risen and fallen because of the rain. Plant life and moss had stuck to the bricks and grown over the bricks over a period of time. Make it feel a little bit more grimy, a little bit more abandoned. I didn't want to do ivy because ivy doesn't grow in water. So I used the mossy rocks and I merged them into the wall a little bit to make some nice patterns, and the textures on the rocks gave a better pattern to the algae, like a nice texture anyway, because it was kind of bumpy. So it gave a nice pattern when I merged it into the bricks. And then just making any sorts of patterns. This was really fun to do. I love creating patterns out of rocks and stuff like this. It kind of reminds me of those ink blot tests that were used in psychology. I did actually do a psychology A level, but yeah, it reminded me of those like ink blot tests. But yeah, it's like trying to see what patterns I was making and kind of what is this? What does this remind you of? A butterfly. What does this remind you of? A butterfly. They all look like butterflies. What is that supposed to say about your psyche? And then to make the windows a little bit grimier, I used this moss. It's like more of a plant life moss than a rock. And I thought that looked more grubby. I've used this for my abandoned water park, for the top of the water, to make that look grubby, because we didn't actually have any water customization options when I did that, otherwise I would have made the water green. But I used this on the top to make it look grubbier, kind of like stagnant water. So that's where I thought this would look good on the windows, because it's a little lighter and it doesn't fully block the windows off, but it still looks dirty, like things have grown over the windows. After making the outside of the building a bit grubbier and a little bit more abandoned looking, I needed to get the roof pieces out of my way now, because I was going to decorate a little bit more of the inside, and then I can see inside the building again. So you can build the roof, get it out of the way and then put it back, or you can just build it at the end. And I'm just going for a very basic flooring. I went with plaster just because there's more size options for the panels, and it's a rave, so you don't really care what the floor looks like, because the floor is just going to be covered in miscellaneous objects, rubbish, you know, stuff and people. I tried to make like a stage where the DJ would be. I didn't want it to be too plain, so I wanted to add a little bit of a pattern to the front and the sides. But yeah, have you ever been to a rave? I'm laughing because I don't know. Maybe there's people out there that like playing games and like partying, but like I'm so socially awkward, not really my thing. I was trying to like match my outfits to my videos, as I like to do most of the time, and I think this is the most rave outfit I've got because it's kind of shiny. If I like go back and rotate, you can sort of see that the circles reflect the light. You can't see that they are They're not hollow. Simply Nailogical would be so disappointed in me. They're like unicorn skin, but you can't really see that with all of these ring lights. You can just see them reflecting. But I wanted to make like a DJ booth type of thing for the stage. So for the right height, I used a counter as a template. I will just remove the counter at the end. And I wanted the DJ booth to light up, so I used the light panels from the New World style. So that's going to look really nice underwater when it lights up. And I wanted to add some neon lights in the background on that back wall, like maybe the rave. I tried to decorate the place a little bit to make it more specific to the rave rather than just having an industrial type of warehouse building. And I don't know, I just thought smiley face out of the stars. Why not? Maybe it's like a DJ's logo. And to make it a little bit more industrial but have the kind of rave vibe, I wanted to do like the metal supports, like the beams to hold the spotlights, like the fun lights. And I had fun with trying to make the zigzag support beam pattern. So I started with just a zigzag line from one diagonal piece to the other, and then I duplicated that, rotated it for the other two diagonal pieces, and moved it up slightly so that the zigzags would interlock with each other. And then I'm adding the spotlights in from the beams, and I wanted to keep the color scheme in the lights as well. So I went for the mint blue and the orange, just to have a little bit of a contrast. I was thinking about doing the dark blue, but it doesn't light up enough, so I went with the orange instead. These were really fun to try and figure out which angles I needed to add the lights in to wherever I wanted to have the spots on the floor. So this is when I started playing around with the damage decals from the Europe pack, and these were really fun. I lined up some columns so I could have some missing bricks on the edges of the opening, and just using lots of different types of damage decals to create the broken bricks. If you look at any angles, you can just see the really flat decals sticking out from the brick wall, but if you look straight on, it just looks like the wall is shattered, which I had fun with. And I tried to line up each of the decals with the bricks in line on the walls as well, so they actually do look like they are following the brick line and they've actually smashed, like it's been broken open, maybe with the pressure of the water, I don't know. It's a really big flood, smashed a wall open, and people started using it as a rave, and then we had another flood, and now people can't use it as a rave because it's fully flooded. There we go, there's the cannon. So now I've smashed open that wall. I need to make like a second story floor and smash through the floor too. For the taller tower, because it's taller, I wanted there to be 2 floor layers. Maybe there were stairs there, maybe there was a ladder there before, but that's all like been broken away because of the storms, and this flooring has broken in the center and has broken through. So I tried to make like a random pattern, like the water had eroded the flooring and it'd been smashed through, and then I used the damage decals. Because they're flexi color, I've colored these damage decals exactly the same color as the floor, and I've just lined the edges with the damage decals so it looks a little bit more broken rather than having those straight edges. And I've put some extra cracks and stuff around on the floor as well for a bit more stress cracks. Like the weight of the water smashed through the floor. I really like wrecking stuff. That is the abandoned factory done, and I moved it over, and I've skipped past this because I wasn't particularly happy with how I did it. So this is me fixing it. Basically, I just moved the whole building over to the water and lowered it down a bit using the advanced move tool, and that's all I really did. If you want 2 different levels of water in a map, or inside a building and outside of a building, just separate the water using the glass barriers. because the glass barriers will hold water. Walls and things like that don't hold water, so the water will basically flow all the way through. If I wanted the water to be at the same level, I could have just put that factory building in the water and everything would have been fine. But because I wanted the water slightly deeper in the building, I built barriers along the walls, so they kind of hid in the walls, and that will allow me to put water inside the building to make it flood. But I still wanted the water outside of the factory along the terrain, so I had that water separate to the water inside the building. And to check whether water is deep enough for underwater swimming, if you use the underwater feeders, if you place one of those in your water that you've added in, it'll say feeder ready if the water's deep enough, and it'll be green right in, or it'll have red right in and saying that it is not available or water's not deep enough. So the feeder will tell you whether your water's deep enough for your animals to deep water swim, underwater swim. But I wanted to encourage the platypus to interact with the habitat and go into the warehouse, so I've put all of the enrichment items and food inside the factory. And my favourite enrichment item ever is that little submarine. And I also played around with the water settings, the new customization settings on the water, so you can change your transparency. I wanted mine to be more transparent so I could see more underwater inside the building. And you can also give your water bubbles. I think that's really cute, and also add mist on top of the water too. Really wasn't sure what to do for the education boards, so I was thinking maybe these could be more like warning signs. And yeah, we've got like the platypus image on there, but I wanted this to kind of be like a warning not to go into the building. So yeah, it used to be a fish factory, and then it got abandoned and changed into a rave venue, and then it got flooded again and abandoned, so now it's been taken over by platypus. So I wanted these signs to be kind of like a warning, telling guests not to enter into the building because they've got a derelict type of building. So I added the no entry signs. I don't know whether these will stop the guests or not, or is that just those little fences. And then I tried to add some like caution tape. It doesn't matter that the guests can't fully see the image on the education boards because it'll still count towards the education, but I kind of wanted it to kind of feel like it was warning the guests away from trying to enter into the factory. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I haven't done my Pretties before I've done this face cam, but I'm hoping I actually get my platypus inside the Abandoned Warehouse Rave to be able to go to their own rave, and they are the glow sticks. Unfortunately, they don't actually glow in Planet Zoo, but I think it's just a fun thing anyway. I still kind of had it tied into the whole wetlands theme because it's flooded, and it had that watermill on the side, and that watermill now is too submerged in water to move. But yeah, I had fun with this one. It was difficult. There's a lot of extra details in there, trying to make it look broken and abandoned, but the Europe pack items really helped with that. Next week, I had a suggestion for a capybara habitat, so that'll probably be the next habitat. But as usual, I love all of your suggestions, so if you have any ideas for a capybara habitat or any of the other wetlands animals or aquatic animals, not even from the aquatic pack, but like an animal that swims, would work lovely in this zoo. Any ideas for types of habitats too? Can be realistic like the Japanese Zen garden, or completely wacky like this Abandoned Warehouse Rave. If you enjoy this video, smash that like button, And if you haven't already and you would like to, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. I upload speed builds on Wednesdays and shorts tutorials on Saturdays. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!